seeing women coming to our brand across the aisle and asking, checking out the product, maybe shopping for a guy in their life, and then asking like, well, this is a really good product. Like the price point's great. Like I like the way it works. Can I use it?
This is Sean, and welcome to Strange Currencies. I am one of the founders of Rotary. It's a media company we started 7 years ago that creates emails that are an upgrade to any guy's inbox. We curate really great content around just general interest, thought-provoking articles, wellness, travel, adventure, sex, dating, relationships, and just being a better guy. We don't do any news, no politics, no bullshit. So if you want to be part of this community of 1.8 million readers, we'll give you a link below. The show was an idea to give me a chance to sit down with some of the great people that I've met running this company over the last 7 years. We sit down and have a casual conversation about what they do for a living, how they got there, what some of their wins are, what some of their challenges are, and we just learn a bunch of life lessons along the way. So I hope you like it. Grab a cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and welcome to the show. I know you're in Dallas, right?
Yes.
And what was the decision to move to Dallas again?
The decision to move to Dallas really actually was a business decision. So my brother Matt and I have been working together now. Oh my God, I think it's been like 20 years.
Wow.
I think we're coming up. Maybe it's like 18 years.
Okay.
But it's been quite a while. And we've been, as you know, we've been working together in some variation of Motley Brands over the last 18 years. And that has evolved into 4 different individual product brands. Mm. But we were both born and raised in Los Angeles. I was always home, and that's where we started the business. We started it basically in our parents' garage, and then moved it into our apartments, and then moved into a small office space, and then a bigger office space, and then by 2019, we were in a giant warehouse space in downtown LA. And we were doing all of our order fulfillment from there. We were running, we had the office in the front, we had fulfillment in the back. It was this, giant space, and then the pandemic. Yeah. And during 2020, it forced the two of us to sit down and figure out, how we were going to operate the business going forward, what our goals were. And through that process, we kind of decided to move fulfillment, out of our operation. So work with a 3PL for that, and sort of scale back how we were doing things. And through that, we both decided that it might be time. We had talked about moving to another state over a few years. It was just kind of a floating idea. And at that point, it became a really strong option. So, we both up and moved. And for a while, our fulfillment stayed in the Los Angeles area. It has since, in the last year, moved to Chicago. So all of our fulfillment happens in Chicago. Matt and I are based in LA. We work with folks on our team across the country. We have someone in LA. We have someone in Austin. We're kind of just all over the place now. So Yeah, that's how we got here.
How did you choose Dallas?
So Matt moved here first. I think he had only been here like once.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah, but I originally thought I was going to move to Austin. So Matt moved to Dallas in November 2020, and my husband and I were going to come to Austin to look at houses in January of 2021. And so we stopped in Dallas first to see Matt and his husband and see their house and check out, their neighborhood and whatnot. So this is our first time in Dallas. We spent a long weekend, 3 days with them. And we're like, oh, this is actually really cool. They were in this awesome little neighborhood that it's called Bishop Arts. It's very walkable, very lively. There's a ton of restaurants, bars, stores, and they were in this awesome old craftsman house. And so we stayed with them. We drove down to Austin. We spent 2 weeks there house hunting. And while we were there, we were like, would it be crazy if we went back to Dallas and maybe looked in that area, because it had the things that were essentially on my short list of what I was looking for in a place to live. I wanted walkability. I wanted to be able to not get in my car to go to a coffee shop, a bar, grab some food, maybe a gym, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And my ideal was a historic home. Having lived in downtown LA before, I was very used to being able to walk everywhere. We were in a historic building. So I wanted to hold on to those things, but gain a little space, especially, the 2020 living in one room got a little small, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. Being in Philadelphia, we feel like the same thing, right? It's so great to be able to walk to everything. It's
totally
such a total treat. So that's great. Can you tell me a little bit about the company? So kind of interesting, how did it, it started, and now you said it's kind of like 4 divisions, if you will. How did that, just sort of briefly, how did that come about? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, so I would say it's been an evolution. We started as the Motley way back.
Truly, 18 years ago? Did you start?
Yeah, it was about that long ago.
And what was the first product?
So we didn't even have a product. We were an online retailer. So we had a website. We sourced products from a bunch of different small, niche brands from all over the world. We were focused specifically on luxury men's skin, hair, fragrance, shaving. That was our focus. The idea was at that time, and this is back when Amazon was only selling books. There wasn't really a space on the internet for men to find these things. So that was the original concept behind the Motley. But then about a year into running this online store, we had started to collect a lot of feedback from our customers, and we had reviews on products. We had people just emailing us and asking for certain products that they hadn't found. Can you make a shaving cream that does XYZ? Wow. Or is there a hand cream out there that isn't greasy but is super, heavy duty, etc. So we took all that feedback, that data that we were getting, and that's when we finally went into our own product development. It wasn't necessarily something that we had planned on doing when we started. It presented itself as a need. So that gave birth to our Bucklers brand, which now has been discontinued, but that was our original start. We started with a hand cream. And then Bucklers was our apothecary style body care brand. And it was very unisex. It was that at the time, the really big trend was those apothecary style brands with the very color wise, stripped down packaging, but lots of text on it. So that was that vibe. And then after that, we launched a brand called Port Products.
Mm-hmm.
And Port Products was going to be our more technical, more advanced ingredients. We were getting into, facial skincare and hair care and styling with that brand. So a little bit more advanced in terms of like Buckler's was very like natural and like stripped down, like a lot of, hydrating butters and oils and that kind of thing. And then with Port Products going into hair, we felt like the ethos of the brands was slightly different. So that became our more like advanced brand.
Yep.
And then we launched a line of fragrances under the Motley.
Yeah.
And so we operated those 3 brands while still selling third-party brands for a while. And then it got to the point where those brands had become big enough that it was time for us to discontinue, the third party and focus solely on building our own brands. And we did that for quite a while. So with Port Products entered big retailers. We were in Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, Lord & Taylor. We were doing that retail route. And Matt and I were spending a lot of time on the floor in those retail spaces. And the men's space was, like the size of a postcard. Yeah. It was really small. And then you'd like look across the aisle and the women's section was massive. And you'd look at the pricing in comparison, and a women's like eye serum was, $200. And then in men's, there was always a cap on price so we knew like we couldn't go over $50 was like the max that you could charge at the time.
That's a retail cap? Was that a retail cap? Or that was
pretty much. I mean, not a hard cap, but it was just understood that men wouldn't spend more than that. Like that just became too expensive. The value, wasn't quite there. And we were seeing women coming to our brand across the aisle and asking, checking out the product, maybe shopping for a guy in their life. And then asking like, well, this is a really good product. Like the price point's great. Like I like the way it works. Can I use it?
Oh, okay.
Of course.
So in case you didn't notice, this episode is all about the fragrance Santal Era by One Kind. It's a new fragrance launched by my friend Madison. And I got a chance to sit down with her today and learn about the process and the steps you take to launch a fragrance. It's great. Very subtle. Love the roll-on. Love the way it smells. I don't ever empower anyone, but I clearly show that I'm upping my game. So if you're interested in it, I'll make sure that we include a link at the end of the show.
So that just having that experience really made us think about gender, made us think about price point, and made us think about just like the overall market and kind of do a reevaluation, and gave us the idea to launch One Kind, which is now our largest brand and our most successful brand to date. And it's been genderless from the beginning.
Got it. Okay. That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? Like you learn a lot it was probably really difficult to be on the floor and sort of like battle for that space. But at the same time, you get all this, physical face-to-face comments and face-to-face sort of feedback that probably was like really, really valuable and sort of how to shape this. So it's interesting.
I would say the most valuable thing in this entire process, and that continues to be the most valuable, is having those conversations and listening to our customers along the way. So having that direct relationship with people and constantly talking to them about what it is that they really want, what they're looking for, what they like, what they don't like, that has been the most valuable resource that we've had to date.
Funny, right? It's this juxtaposition of being like an online brand, but then
Hmm.
getting your most value from being in front of people. And so
Totally.
it's we see that a lot too. We struggle a lot. We don't struggle, but as a brand or as a company, most of our interaction is online, right? It's digital, and so we
Definitely.
always say that the best movement and the best conversations and the best partnerships are the ones that you can have face to face. So it's cool to see that that's all starting to come back now, right? But
Yes.
still, at the end of the day, we're all sort of like digital based brands, so it's always a mix. So let's talk about the fragrance, right? Like that was sort of the idea. So you and I connected. We have this fragrance, and we're excited to promote it. But I would love, what I thought would be really interesting is to learn more about like how do you actually what goes into launching a fragrance? Personally, this fragrance to me is great, and I know that you very deliberate for making this, tailored a bit towards men. Big thing I really like about it is that, and I'm probably not using the words that you think about, but it's it's really subtle, right? So it's the idea
Yes.
that like when I'm wearing it, I don't feel like I'm overpowering anybody, and I really like that. I like it myself, and I know other people like it that way. I also think that like which I don't know if this is necessarily unique or not, but the roll on is really smart. I don't know if that's
Hmm.
I always think of it as a spray, and I just thought that that was really smart that you had that on your packaging to be able to just roll it on instead of spray because it helps manage it and keep it subtle. So that was
Yes.
really smart too. And the scent is great. But it would be great just to sort of hear like how do you do this? Like how do you pick the scents? Like how do you launch? Like what are the challenges you have? So it'd be really fun to sort of just walk through like how this came about and like and from idea to actually being on the shelves.
Yeah, so Matt and I have always had a mutual deep love for fragrance. As I said, this isn't necessarily our first venture into fragrance. We've dabbled in it before, but this was our first time approaching fragrance from the perspective of being a category that we really want to invest in and grow. And under one kind, the idea was that we were going to approach fragrance A as, unisex, and then B from a skin first perspective. Being a skincare brand to begin with, we wanted to introduce fragrance, but we wanted to bridge into fragrance from skincare. So the application that you're talking about with the oil base in a roller ball
Yeah.
comes from that skin first perspective. We wanted it to be skin friendly, it's alcohol free, it is more gentle on sensitive skin types, which is important. One kind, sensitive skin is very central to the One Kind brand. So everything we develop is geared around is it's sensitive skin friendly. So
Got it.
entering fragrance, that was important to us. And then in terms of the actual scent, so our first fragrance, it's called Santal Era. We started with a sandalwood scent because the two of us sat down and we were like, what are your core fragrance, go-tos? Like what are the fragrances that you time and time again come back to? What are the notes that, despite trends or times in your life or day to night or, events, what are the notes that are always in your fragrance wardrobe? It's like that classic pair of jeans or, white t-shirt. Sandalwood for us is definitely that. I think it's that for a lot of people. And, having that like male female perspective, I think was important going into it. We both agreed that sandalwood was a note that we both loved. And, talking to friends and family and whatnot, that's what we were hearing is consistently like a nice, rich, woody scent has wide appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew that's where we wanted to root this first fragrance. And then we wanted to create something that would have that rich, warm complexity to it. But like you said, is subtle. It's not overwhelming. We talked about it as, fragrance, it's an intimate experience. It's something that you want somebody to smell when you go in for a hug, not like when you
Right.
enter the building.
Yep.
That's always been our mindset. It's very mindful application is important to us. We want fragrance to be something that is an intimate experience.
That makes sense. So here's an interesting question. So how much of this, the sandalwood scent, was really just you and Matt's gut versus kind of what you learned? Like, I know a lot of what we do as a company is really based on Tim and I's gut.
Yeah.
We've been lucky, knock on wood, that it's been right, but it really is like most of the time. That's just kind of how we've always approached everything. We always felt like if we liked something, we assumed that there were a few 100,000 other guys that liked the same thing. Do you approach it the same way, or is there a lot more research or any of your experience that sort of backs into that?
So going with sandalwood was our gut. We, like you, thought, okay, this is a scent that is, iconic to us. It's probably iconic to other people. That said, we definitely had different iterations of the scent, and that we workshopped a bit with other people's input. Not like massive, we didn't do like a giant focus group, but just asking people. I would just carry the different iterations around with me wherever I went. Yeah. Every social gathering, I'd be like, smell this, what do you like? Yep. And would just kind of try to get, some insight as to what people were drawn to.
Yeah.
And without giving them too much, information about what I was asking or, leading them in any direction, just like A versus B, what do you like?
Yep.
And so we definitely have done that. We've done that with some of the next fragrances that will come after this one. But essentially the idea, the profile, the story around the fragrance, that's a gut decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? Like it has to be your gut. Like you're the one putting all the time, effort, and energy and money behind it, right? So you need to feel like it's what you believe in as much as it is for everybody else. But based on that, in your experience, I would assume that, it's not a blind gut. You're basing it off of other things that you've done to this point and feedback that you've gotten. So that's great. So then, how long does it take to go from having friends at a party smell it to like actually getting it packaged and on the market?
So I'd say with this first, having it be like, fragrance number one, that's a longer process. It has taken us almost a year from the idea to getting it in people's hands. I'd say maybe half of that was the fragrance itself. Half of that is, was figuring out packaging and design and all of those aspects, some logistical stuff in there. And now, one of the beauties of doing a fragrance line is that at this point, hopefully the packaging and the operations, logistics, all of that kind of stuff of production will start to be, pretty streamlined.
Okay.
And we can focus more just on the actual fragrance formulation itself.
Got it.
And coming up with new scents. And for me, that's the fun part. That's what I love. So I'm excited about that. I'm very excited to just meet with our perfumer and try things and play with things and, just come up with where this line goes next.
So is it different now, with technology? Is it different now because it's a physical product, right? So the
Mhm.
things that we do are digital, right? So we can pivot on a minute, right? And try different
Yeah.
things, but you're actually creating something. So like when you think about this and you've launched this fragrance, like how much do you create or how much do you bottle in the beginning to sort of feel out like for it and that investment before your first you got to take those off. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
So it's a question of like how much do you need to invest up front and be able to test without having to obviously launch a line on a bigger scale.
Yeah, that's a great question. We so for this, that was something that we debated. We initially went into it with the idea of we are only going to produce a small, potentially like limited edition quantity of this one fragrance, see how it goes, and then, based on that, maybe we'll come out with more.
Okay.
But because it's a lot more like per unit, it's a lot more cost effective
Right.
to do scale at one run.
Yeah.
We actually already produce like we produce packaging for 3 fragrances
Okay.
with the first run. But that said, we only filled for the first fragrance, we only filled a limited quantity of bottles. And now we're actually in the middle of our second production run right now on the first fragrance.
On the first one.
So we're
When you said you have 3 packages, like those are 3 packages for 3 different fragrances at some point.
correct.
Okay, that you build up front for efficiency.
Yes. Yeah. So
That's really cool.
so we went into like getting bottles made, screen printed, getting all of those components produced for 3 fragrances, even though we were launching with one. And so now for those next 2 fragrances, which are coming out, they'll be coming out in the next year. We have those bottles ready to be filled.
And you know them, like you know what the fragrances are. Do you already have the
Yes.
branding figured out for those? Do you already have?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you at this point pivot at all, or are you like sort of like locked into those 3 fragrances and that branding and everything else?
Somewhat. So
Yeah.
we actually have had to pivot a little bit. We'll be reprinting boxes
Okay.
for one of them because the notes have changed a little bit. But we knew when we went into production on the bottles, I had the concepts of the fragrance already like built out in my brain
Yeah.
of what those scents would be and what the names would be, and then just getting. So I almost worked backwards of like I conceptualized the fragrance as an idea
Mhm.
and gave it a name, and then went to our perfumer and said, okay, here's the prompt. Here's now how do we back into that?
And I would assume that's got to be like an advantage for you as a smaller company. Like I would assume that as a larger fragrance company, that's probably very difficult to do, right? The investment or the challenges, like your ability to sort of, you must be more nimble as a smaller
Yes,
company than a
definitely.
larger company, right? So that allows you to sort of do those things, which is really good. What are like some of the challenges that the average person wouldn't think about when launching a fragrance, getting it to the point that it's packaged and ready to go? What are some of the typical, headaches or typical things you have to worry about?
Oh, the headaches. There have been a few. I would say that with fragrance, some of the biggest challenges come down to the format of fragrance that you're choosing. So one of the benefits of going with the oil base is that because it doesn't have alcohol, it can ship internationally
Oh,
uh, with little, issue. One of the challenges that we've had in the past working with fragrance that is an alcohol base is there's so many restrictions about shipping alcohol. So we eliminated that one by going with oil. But oil presents its own challenges in terms of application and also shipping because oil is it it can be potentially leaky. It's so that was we had to test a lot of different roller balls to find an option that didn't leak in transit.
you mean leak in transit, not leak in
Yeah.
application, but leak in
No,
transit.
like yeah. So we had issues where we would test ship bottles back and forth across the country to see since I mean 95% of our sales are coming from, r.com and being shipped out to customers. That's really important, right? Like how does a product go from our warehouse to their house?
Yeah.
And so we tested sending the product across the country. And one of the challenges that we had was the original packaging that we bought and invested in. It was leaking, so we had to find replacement packaging.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So those are
yeah,
some of the things that you have to think about. And
yeah,
so, do you find that, okay, you said about 95% of your sales come directly, right? Which
yeah.
is great, right? At some point, I would assume, like all of us, that the mission would be to scale that directly, right? How much pressure do you feel to sort of, to scale and work with other distribution partners, like the A word, right, or other ones like that. We won't say their name, but the other ones out there that could. Are they? What are the advantages for you doing it directly outside of obviously a profit standpoint? Are there other advantages that people aren't aware of versus going through a third party?
So there's definitely advantages to the DDC model. There's also advantages to working with retailers in order to really grow. I think that retail is going to be important for us, especially with fragrance. That is a goal for us and something that, we will be working on into, next year. We do have a Amazon presence, not for the fragrances yet, but for some of our best-selling products, we do sell them on Amazon. But the benefits of selling directly, I mean, we have full control over everything from, the education someone gets around a product, the experience of receiving the product, customer service. If there's an issue with the product, like all of that is controlled.
Yep.
So obviously that's important to us. I mean, I have a direct email relationship. I'm emailing back and forth with a lot of our customers on a day-to-day basis. So that's important. Obviously, having their contact information is a huge asset. Being able to have them on our email list and let them know when something awesome and new launches.
Yep.
That's a huge advantage.
Yep. Yep.
But that said, people are shopping in a lot of different places. And I think that in order to really grow a brand, you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
If that's Amazon, then that's Amazon. If that's, Sephora, or Ulta, or Nordstrom, or whoever, like, that's Target, that's where they are. And obviously, you might not be in all of those places, but I do think that there's benefit. And what we see is that there isn't a huge amount of overlap. Because one of the fears we had in entering Amazon was, are we going to cannibalize our own website by making products available on Amazon?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you have to think about that.
Yeah. But what we found through, again, talking to our customers, doing surveys and whatnot, asking them, have you purchased our products on Amazon? A lot of them have not. They prefer to come directly to us. So the orders that we're seeing on Amazon are coming from elsewhere.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I would assume that, as a customer to work directly with a company is way better. You know what I mean? I think there's certain things that an Amazon maybe brings, but the
Sure.
kind of feedback that you want to get, right? The customer service, it's always going to be much
Always going to be better directly from the brand.
So, couple more questions. Marketing a fragrance, right? Like, do you have, oh no, the one question I had, sorry, I'll go back, is when you think about retail, do you have existing retail partnerships from past that basically are like, hey, Madison, like when you have a fragrance and you're ready to go, like we want you to come talk to us first. Do retailers like jockey with one another to sort of get their hands on something first with you? And do they incentivize you anyway? Like, how does that all work?
There is a little bit of that. Everybody likes to be exclusive or first, or we have worked with, not so much in the retailer space, but like subscription boxes. They really like exclusivity. So that's always something to navigate and make sure, if you are running something like you have a product included in a box with one, you might have to wait a year to be able to do a deal with a different one because of that exclusivity.
Yep.
So I'd say like they're definitely probably the biggest on that. Not so much with like just traditional retailers. We haven't experienced that, but yeah, it definitely comes up. We haven't, with One Kind, we haven't entered the traditional retail space. We're still, One Kind has been primarily through our .com, some products on Amazon. We have worked with quite a few of the subscription boxes, but still in that, like, you receive the product in your home type of setup rather than like going to the store and finding it on a shelf.
Yeah, right. Which again makes sense, right? I mean, if you can do it directly, right, it's got to be more efficient. It's got to be easier. It's got to be better as a business. So that makes sense. So then, how do you think about marketing a fragrance like this? Do fragrances have, is it like any brand? Do you have tried and true channels? Like, oh, I know if it's a unisex fragrance, like this is what we'll use to market it? Or is it just like everything else these days that, you have a certain audience and you try different things?
I'd say it's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
I even down to like, fragrance is a whole nother category for us, but even on a product by product, certain products do really well in certain like ad channels and certain products don't. I think that what we found is there are certain products in our collection that are just those gateway products that people understand immediately where it lives in their skin routine, if it's for them, if it's not for them. It's very clear. And like what the product does, like all of that is very clear. And then there are some that I think take like, oh, I tried the hero product now I'm going to add a few other products from the line, or I've been on the email list for a while and I've gotten more of the education content, and I see where like this other product could fit into my routine or benefit my skin. So kind of understanding the customer journey, I think, is important, and knowing like where most people will begin and then how to like handhold them along the way.
Yep.
I mean, fragrance is going to be interesting for us because it's only, I mean, we launched Santal Era a few weeks ago, so it's all fresh. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
But yes, marketing fragrance online, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that what is going to be important with fragrance is conveying a vibe, a mood, a feeling through imagery, through copywriting, through like all of that, because you can't smell it.
Yeah, right. That's right. That makes sense.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that hopefully retail will be really helpful for fragrance. I think that for us, entering fragrance as a category was strategic, and it was a hand in hand. Like, we decided that we want to pursue retail at this point, and creating fragrance, we did that at the same time. So we almost created this fragrance collection with the goal of hopefully having it in physical locations.
Yeah. How much, when you market to audience, is it people that probably have fragrance in their routine, or like, is the idea that you hope to take people, I mean, of course it is, you want to get as big as you can, but how successful are you to basically educate people that don't use fragrance at all to sort of maybe try this? Or is it really that you're marketing to people that likely have fragrance in their routine in some capacity?
Well, I think what's interesting right now is we are marketing fragrance to people who have experienced our brand through skincare.
Yep.
So that was step one, is getting fragrance into the hands of folks who love our skincare and trust us and know that everything we do is, with that thoughtful, mindful approach. And so the idea was they've trusted us, with their skin, that if we use that same approach to enter fragrance, that they will, trust us with fragrance. And the idea there is that those people are, the first ones to try the fragrance, to their most loyal customers. They leave reviews. They tell people when they like something. Yep. So the idea is get them to try it, get them to talk about it. A lot of the reviews that are coming in for the fragrance do speak to, that subtlety, or we have people who are saying like, I wasn't a fragrance person. I haven't found a fragrance that I love before. They're usually too strong. They give me headaches, whatever. And then this one is not that. This one, they finally found a fragrance that works for them. So getting that testimonial, getting that, sort of word of mouth, like approval and vetting us, I think will help then when someone who, if we're running ads on Instagram, when you see customer reviews that say like, I wasn't a fragrance person, but now I am.
Yeah.
Then that speaks to that person.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I totally agree. That's a pretty extensive sort of look at like kind of how you go through all this. So like the last thing I'd want to ask you, which I thought would be a fun question, is as a co-owner of the company, like give me a sense of like what your day to day is like. What do you What do you do each day? Is it just different all the time? Do you have certain things you have to get done? I know in my world, like there are certain things I have to get done and then other things come along the way, but like what's a day like?
Yeah, I'd say it's a mix of, the things that I have to get done and then the things that just constantly pop up
Yeah.
unexpected.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just being prepared for, the unknown on a day-to-day basis. And it, fluctuates in terms of like where we're at in production or the time of year as to like how crazy things can be. But I do try to, for myself, I try to use like a little bit of a like block
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah.
I after years of just kind of like doing things here and there throughout the day and taking calls and meetings and at different times and every single day, I've now tried to consolidate. I like to have Mondays and Fridays as my days to ideally not talk to anybody else
Yeah.
and solely focus on things that are more creative. I do, because I personally do all of our email marketing. I do all the copywriting, all the design, I guess.
You wear a lot of hats.
Social media, all that. That's me. So I use those days for that kind of work.
Yeah.
And then the middle of the week, I'll have typically like 2 days that might be heavy in terms of, I'm in meetings the whole day, back to back. And, and then there's usually I feel like Tuesdays, Matt and I try to like connect because we're both working on different things. I mean, we end up talking probably every day, but really like, bigger picture conversations. What products do we want to work on next? What is the next, what are the goals for like the next year? That kind of stuff. We'll try to like block out, a big chunk of time because those conversations can go long.
Yeah, no. Tim and I are the same. I'm more of like I always say the analogy is baseball. Like I'm more of the manager and he's like the GM. Like that's just how he thinks, right? So we have to connect just like you and Matt to sort of think about the bigger picture because I always get bogged down in just sort of making sure that we move the ball forward day to day. So I totally understand that. And it's just the balance that you all have to do. It's great. So that's all I had. This was really fun. I knew it would be. Like I learned a ton about this. Obviously,
Yeah.
we are very excited to help you support this. Excited to see how it goes.
Thank you.
I
We
get to wear
appreciate
it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and appreciate this partnership that I've had with you and Matt for. I mean, I think you guys have been with me since I started this 6 or 7 years ago. Isn't that crazy? I think
that is crazy. But yes,
Yeah.
I believe you are right on that. It has been a long time and it's been a great relationship.
Yeah, it has been. So thanks for that. And like I said, super excited to see how this goes and looking forward to helping you support it along the way. And like, thanks for chatting.
Thank you so much.